welcome to Wrestling and Everything, Coast to Coast, with your host, Buddy Sotelo Esquire, wrestling's premier photographer, Mike Lano, and Evan Ginsberg. So, Evan, would you like to introduce our guest for tonight?
Absolutely. He is a respected pro wrestler who we enjoyed in ECW and literally around the country and Japan, and much respected. He is Tommy Cairo. How are you tonight, Tommy?
Good. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
Good, good. So we have not seen you in a while. Please update us. What's been happening since you retired from wrestling? When did you retire from wrestling?
Right around 2000. I did a show in New Jersey, and I worked with a friend of mine, Paul Equalizer, Paulie Bikeout, and it was an outside show at a hotel on Route 9. I believe it was like Forked River. The guy that ran the hotel was a big wrestling fan, so I was working for Tom Rumsby, who was based out of the same area, had a school there. And Paulie oiled himself up a little bit too much. I dropped him and separated his shoulder.
Hey.
And we went out to dinner with our wives after that with his separated shoulder.
Wow. Russell knows about shoulder problems.
Yeah, I just had my right shoulder replaced in November, so yes, I
can't put a plate in the microwave. I can't lift the plate to put it in there.
That's where I was before the shoulder replacement. You might have to go through that too. Wouldn't wish that on you, but you might have to have it. Tommy, can you tell us how you got started in professional wrestling, please?
Sure. Really good story too, because it involves one of the top guys ever in the business, Bruno Sammartino. He didn't get me in, but he got me in. So I was about 8 years old when I discovered pro wrestling. My uncle was a fan. I watched it for a couple years, and I was 10 years old. Now, I don't know if anybody remembers this, because as you know, those old TV tapings, they were never rerun. The ones that were done in, the Field House, Hamburg, and the Philadelphia Arena, those were never rerun. They were run.
And a lot of those tapes have been destroyed. A lot of that film and tapes have been destroyed.
They were run in succession like they always did. You tape 4 weekly shows in one day and you run them consecutively. So I had been watching the week before. It was Channel 9, Ray Morgan out of Washington, D.C. And they were talking about Bruno and his kayfabe cousin, Antonio Pugliese, a.k.a. Tony Parisi. They were going to tag up against, I believe it was like Baron Cicluna, King Curtis and Baron Cicluna, something like that. Well, they were talking about it the week before. Comes the night of the show, the night of that next week, and they're talking about the match, the main event, Bruno and his cousin, blah, blah, blah. So it comes time to announce the match, and the heels are out in the ring, and they announce Tony Parisi first. He comes out, and they announce Bruno, and it was kind of strange they didn't come out together. And they announced Bruno, no Bruno. So, Ray Morgan's looking around, and next thing you know, somebody comes from behind him and hands him a little. Well, Bruno missed his plane connection, and it looks like he's not going to be here tonight. So, with that, the heels put the boots to Antonio Pugliese. All of a sudden, Ray, what happened? It's Bruno. Here comes Bruno with his suitcase, with his tie hanging. There was a shirt hanging out of the suitcase. Bruno just made it from the airport. He jumps in the ring. Him and Antonio Pugliese are back to back. They beat the heels down. They take a powder and are standing in the middle of the ring, and I'm screaming, watching a little black and white TV in my little room. My mother comes running in. What's the matter? I said, Bruno. And she says, oh my God, you're driving me nuts with this stuff. So instead of, maybe like stopping me from watching it, she did the worst thing probably, or the best thing, and alerted my uncle, like, you got to take him to the matches. I know you go every once in a while. So there I go. My first live match, I was 10 years old. And how I know that is the book that was out on the magazine that was out, one of the magazines was 15 or 20 every month, that was current, had a picture of Bulldog Brower and somebody else, and it said, so and so signs Brower's death certificate in hot blood. I mean, I saw that image, and you know how I found out? Years later, I was wondering like how old I was when I went to my first one. I wasn't sure, 10, 11, 12. Well, in the back of the wrestling magazines, they had pictures of back issues, little miniature pictures of the covers. And I found the one that I had seen at that show at the Newark Armory, and it said Brower's, blood death certificate in hot blood. And I looked with a magnifying glass, and I saw the date, the year 1968. And that's how I figured out, I started watching it at 10. And then all it was a succession of my father taking me, here's a perfect example, Wildwood Convention Hall. My aunt had a house down there. My cousin and I would go and stay. So my father came down for the weekend because we'd been there during the week. And he brought me to Wildwood Convention Hall to buy tickets for the wrestling show. So I go in the office, there's a little office up there, up the ramp in the back, go up the side door. I go in, I'm getting my tickets. Now, this may sound like an exaggeration, but I remember it being real. It was like the light, it got dark in the room. It was this gigantic person. It was Gorilla Monsoon. And I looked at him and I got my tickets and I ran outside. And my father was like, "What's wrong? You look like you saw a ghost." I said, "Gorilla Monsoon is in there." He says, "Well, did you get an autograph?" I said, "No, I didn't even think about it." He goes, "I didn't look through he had a carpenter's pencil, or I don't know." I ran up. Monsoon was on the boardwalk. I don't know if you remember Wildwood Convention Hall and a pizzeria right next door. And all the pictures from the wrestlers that would go and eat there, they were all up on a wall, signed, And there's Gorilla Monsoon sitting on the boardwalk on the bench facing toward the pizzeria. And I saw him. I said, I got to do it. So I walked up there, and we have nothing to write on. He went and got two paper plate from the pizzeria and signed Gino Morella. Now, here's the funny thing. I saw Gorilla Monsoon at I think the only Cauliflower Alley convention. George Napolitano ran it. It was in Jersey, I think at the airport lounge or whatever.
New York Airport. He ended up, Tommy, he promoted 3 for us. I did one in St. Louis, and George did 3 at the New York Hilton, I think it was, near JFK or LaGuardia, one of the two.
Yeah, and I happened to be in my prime on the indie scene. Everybody knew me. I felt like the Godfather. I never expected that. I was standing outside the entrance to the ballroom, and I saw Monsoon walk outside. Sometimes you shouldn't pursue your heroes because often they disappoint. And I went up and I introduced myself, and I'm in a suit, and I'm 240 pounds in a suit, I'm formidable, not a tall guy. And he looked me up and down, and I said, I told him that story. And he goes, "Well, I never signed Gino Morella. If you have that, you better hold on to it. It's going to be worth some money." I knew that I was right. I know he signed Gino Morella. Whatever, I caught him not in the wrestling mode, maybe because it was during the day outside while he was there before, probably running the thing, And then I have a picture of me at the stage getting his autograph. And you can see him standing there, and I'm looking at him, and he's signing my program. So at an early age, I got to know Davey O'Hannon. I got to know Johnny Rods. I got to know Gary Capetta. Gary would let me in my hometown, Belleville. So I'll move this along a little bit. I competed in 1985 Mr. America. And at the time, I was reading Wrestling Eye magazine. And the guy turned out to be a good friend of mine, Carmine DeSpirito, because he actually promoted some shows, some of my first shows that he booked me on. And where was I?
Well, while you're thinking of that, we tease Carmine because I go, how the hell did you, a Jersey kid, New York kid, end up in Wisconsin? Are you in the witness protection plan? So I always rib him. I go, well, how the f- did you end up in Wisconsin, brother?
Unbelievable. So, so this article, Eastern Wrestling Alliance, right? And I'm like, who's this? They're in Seawarren, New Jersey. Now, as a young kid, I was such a fanatic that I would read the republished ads that they would put in the back of the wrestling whatever magazine, Inside Wrestling, whatever. And I would call those numbers and just ask, who's on the card this week? Like, I was so stupid, as a kid, because we didn't have all this internet. Some new show came on when IWA came into town. We were like blown away. What's this? Came on at 12 o'clock at night. And we didn't see a lot of these guys live or on TV previous, but we knew them from the magazines. So we knew who all these guys were. Now I'm getting to see them. Bulldog Brower, the old IWA, Bulldog Brower, Larry Heinemimi. We were just like fanatical fans. And that carried over to me going to live matches. Then I got into bodybuilding. I won the Mr. New Jersey in 83. 85, I was a top 10 in the Mr. And out back on Readers Magazine, EWA, Dennis and Murdy Galam. And Jimmy Ryan was the other promoter. And who was working for them but my trainer, Ted Petty, Rocco Rock. So I go down, I see, I call let me try. That's what he used to call, what do you call it? Not, 411 information. So you get a number for the Eastern Wrestling Alliance in Seawarren, New Jersey. And so to my surprise, they said, hold for a number. I got the number and I called, and they blew me off completely. So I saw that they were running a show in Seaside, outside in a little arena they call the Wet Banana Sports Complex. So I marched down there. I watched part of the show, which was, the guys were terrible. Except, matter of fact, one of the guys, I think, that was working there, he was all right. It was Bull Butcher, who I think he just passed. I just saw something that he just passed. But Teddy had trained him a little bit. And so I'm standing there in my tank top, knowing that these people blew me off a couple days ago on the phone. And I'm in good shape. I just got back from the Mr. America. Nobody looked like that really walking around. Very rare. Here I'm standing there, and they're looking at me and they're pointing. And so finally, Jimmy Ryan makes his way over. And I knew them by face because of the article. So he says, hey, he says, how you doing? I said, good, good. He says, wow. He goes, you're in some shape. I said, thank you. He said, did you ever think about getting in the wrestling business? I said, yeah, I thought about it. I says, I called somewhere a couple of days ago, and they blew me off. He goes, oh yeah, what's your call? I said, you. He said, well, we don't know. It's a closed type of business. We don't know who you are. He said, man, if you're interested in training, we got a guy that, does some training. I said, well, honestly, I'm an amateur wrestler. I'm a bodybuilder. I'm strong. I'm agile. I was an amateur wrestler. And quite frankly, after what I saw tonight, I think I could do a better job than almost everybody, except that one guy under the mask, the Blue Max. That was Ted Petty.
Thomas, how do you feel that your amateur background prepared you for a career in pro wrestling?
Oh, invaluable, because number one, it enabled you to let people know that if they didn't want to be cooperative, they better be ready to, not be able to make. I did this in Japan. I grabbed Hiromitsu Kanehara, and he started getting stupid right off the bat, and I took him down. I armbarred him and posted his leg up, from referee position.
You could stretch them, as they say.
And I put him down on his face, and I said, whatever you want to do, bro. I let him up, and then it was sweet as could be after that. But I think it's more than that. It's the grueling nature of amateur wrestling is like nothing else. Football players couldn't hack it. They'd start our season late because they come from football, and we'd weed them out real quick because when you're an amateur wrestler, you cut weight. You're already a skinny kid to begin with. You're cutting weight. I remember having to lose like a half a pound. I had like an hour to do it, and we would turn all the showers on hot in the men's shower, like 15, 20 showers, whatever, on hot, like a steam bath in there, and go in with plastics on. Put a plastic bag over you, plastic pants, and go in there.
Make yourself into a sauna.
Yep, little by little, you would pee, run your hand under cold water. Sometimes even a little bit of food, you might have to purge that. Cut your fingernails, spit in a cup all the way on the bus to the town that we're going to, And I was kind of skinny to begin with, so that didn't help me. I think if I wasn't for bodybuilding and weightlifting, I think I would never have grown to the point that, I'm 5'9", but I was 5'9" by 5'9", So I think that it really helped me with my weight training and getting into the weights when I did. And at that point, I did maybe 4 months of training Teddy, and then I don't know if you remember a guy. He used to work for the Morton Downey show. His name was Davy G, or Davy Giggled.
I do remember the Morton Downey Jr. show. I don't remember.
Yeah, he was on. He was the.
Was he the bodyguard? Was he the guy?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
I remember him.
Yeah, he worked as the masked Russian. So Teddy, 4 months in, Teddy said, "All right, I want you and Davey to take the van, and you make these shots over the next couple months up in New England." And that was the best thing I ever could have done. So I remember driving to Burlington, Vermont with Davey G, get to the building, put the ring up, wrestle in the ring, train. We always did that, always. Leave, go to the hotel, sleep for a while, come back, work the show, break the ring down, put it in the van. Sometimes we stayed, sometimes we drove, depending on how we felt. And I worked up there with Brian Walsh. I got my first shot at like a title, IWA junior heavyweight title. I'll never forget. He was such a gracious dude. Brian Walsh, this is my first year. He's like, they were going to do a little 3-day thing. So they had him drop the belt to me. So when we got back to the locker room, I put the belt on the bench by his stuff. And he's like, "Did you take any pictures?" I'm like, "Hold on 1 second. I got to get my TV back on." I said, "No." Sorry about that. I said, "No, I didn't." He said, "Well, take the belt back out in the hallway there and take some pictures with it. You never let a chance like that get away from you." And the magazine used the Wrestling Eye, and there was another one that was like a sister publication. And that's basically how I started. And I did that with Teddy for a year and a half. And then I was getting booked. I remember I was in training at the Wet Banana Sports Complex outside in the summer, about 90 degrees. We actually had to spray down the canvas because it was so hot you couldn't even lay on it. And I'm out there working out, and all of a sudden I look over, and it's Gary Capetta standing there. And I hadn't seen Gary maybe 100 pounds ago in my bodybuilding because I was a kid, and he used to let us in high school. I said, "Gary, what are you doing here?" He's like, "What do you mean?" He says, this is my pier. His parents owned that pier in Seaside that sports complex was on. So he said, "What are you doing? You're training? You're finally getting into the business." I said, Yeah. So he says, "Come up to my office when you're done." I went up there. She's really happy. He said, "Anything I can do for you, you let me know." I said, "Okay." So next week I'm there. Tom Fernini shows up, Savoldi. First time I ever met him. I'm working out and he's watching. "Hey, kid, come over here. I want you to take down this number. I want you to call me next Saturday." He's got the cigar. "I want you're going to come up to East Lyme, Connecticut." I was like, "For what?" He goes, what, did you get hit in the head already? What do you mean, to wrestle? I go, I'm training. He's like, you'll be fine. Yeah. I went up there.
Mario? Was this Mario?
Yeah, well, Tom, I dealt with Tom first.
Yeah, the brother. Yeah.
Yes, and then Mario. So I get up there, and it's an ICW AWA taping. I actually wrestled with Colonel De Beers. It's the first and only time I never had any offense because I didn't know any better. And I met Dingo, which was Ultimate Warrior. I met Vern Gagne. I met who the hell else? I met Berserker, who was John Nord. Bunch of people. What's his name? Shawn Michaels was there early in his career because he was working for the AWA back then. And that was like my first, foray out there into, the wrestling world. And then just progressed from there. In 92, late 92, I went to ECW. I worked for Davey O'Hannon. You know who Pete Reeves was?
Davey's been on the show before.
Well, Davey was, when I tried bringing Tommy on with Davey. Davey was, was on. He put you over like $1 million. Tommy, let me just say a couple of stuff, and then I got to go because of my voice. Brian Walsh, when Evan gets to asking questions, Evan has known Brian, right, Ev? You've known Brian.
Yeah, he's living in San Diego now.
Yeah, for decades. You guys can talk about this. But I want to say this about Ted Petty. When I first took pictures of him, he was wearing the mask as Cheetah Kid. I forgot that Offa trained him. And, and then he was a boxer before he was a pro wrestler. And, he was obviously around Savoldi's and all that stuff. But when you mentioned Bruno, a couple of things. I was thinking today because, none of us are Catholic, or you're probably Catholic. I'm just regular Christian, but
I'm a Christian.
The Pope in serious shape. I was thinking, were there any wrestlers right before the show started? I looked up and I forgot that Bruno's the only pro wrestler to this day in 1966 who ever had an audience with the Pope in Italy, which was a huge deal. So kudos to Bruno.
The Rock has never told the Pope to smell what the Rock is cooking.
No, he had that distinction. And I was the one that broke the story very quickly. The Rock is talking about wanting Cody Rhodes' soul on Friday, blah, blah, blah. And all these people are speculating where they came from. All you got to do is look at that classic 1955 play turned into a musical movie with Ray Walston as the devil, Damn Yankees. That's where all of that promo, almost word for word, touching Cody's face, saying he didn't want the championship back, because the devil awarded this baseball guy with the Washington Senators going over the hated New York Yankees heel team. But Tommy, for you, I wanted to ask about in those days, particularly, all the characters in the Savoldi's IW, CCW, or whatever it became from the ICW. What were early Sandman and Tommy Dreamer like back then, in the back? Because I think you guys are all kind of peers breaking into the business maybe about the same time through different means. I forget who in fact broke in Sandman. Does anybody know who broke Hack in?
You know what? I think he might have broken somewhere around Philly and then very early went down to Memphis.
Because with the Savoldis, I shot him, he was doing the surfer gimmick with the surfboard.
With the Savoldis?
Maybe it was the early Todd Gordon then, but it was somewhere there. And it was just like, what a crazy transition to what he would become in ECW later on.
I think the manufacturer of those cane sticks is the one that got him into
using a cane, Russ. You don't know his history. He wasn't using a cane. He came out with his wife Peaches.
I know, but I'm saying whoever makes those cane sticks,
you don't know anything
sold
about
so many of those.
He's doing the surfer gimmick, not the cane stuff, which came many years later.
You don't get it. It's a joke. I'm saying that whoever made those cane sticks sold 1 billion of those after he started hitting people with them.
Yeah. And that's not a kendo stick. They call it a kendo stick. There's another name for it, but it's not a kendo stick. That's just
Singapore cane. Not
right.
even. It's a gimmick
Singapore,
thing.
right. A Singapore cane and a
Still
kendo
hurts. Still hurts.
are, oh, no doubt. But if I'm 200 plus pounds and you're 200 plus pounds, I can swing that all day long as hard as I want. The only way it could really hurt you is if I actually poke you in the eye with it or poke you in the groin with it. You know, we're big, strong guys. That's nothing
Makes
but
a lot of noise. It makes a lot of noise. Like
it stings a little, but you know, that's nothing to. I don't know. My take on what I needed out of wrestling to feel like I wanted to do it was that I needed the physicality, and that's why I was married to guys like Manny Fernandez for 5 years because nobody had the guts to work with him because at that point a lot of promoters wanted to use him to put their guys over, but if their guy wasn't somebody like me, then they were going to get eat up and chewed up and spit out. And cousin Luke said it perfectly. He said to Frankie Goodman when they're putting the show together, "We got Cairo and Manny on the show. There's nothing else we could do but put them together." Like that's the only choice we have is to put those two guys together. I overheard a conversation one time. Two kids next row over in a locker were like, "Did you see that fucking guy Cairo? He's like 250. He's like 5'9" by 5'9". Did you see?" And Manny, you see that Manny? He goes, "Did you ever see those guys work each other?" He goes, "I fuck that." He says, "I don't want no part of that." And then I said to Manny, and I came walking around the corner like, "Hey guys, what's up? Listen, I was talking to the promoter. So you're working Manny and you're working me." The kid's like,
Tommy, wait, let me stop you for a sec. Before I go,
yeah.
Cousin Luke when he started in the biz, he was doing like a Kurt Angle amateur wrestler gimmick. He was billed as Gene Lewis, the brother to Dale Lewis, the tag partner to Dale Lewis, even though they weren't legit related. Dale Lewis was he was like an Olympic quality pro or amateur wrestler. In the biz, he was very good. Real sharp wrestler. He worked actually, Evan teamed a lot in 1973 with John Tolis for the year that he returned back to LA. But a guy that Dale Lewis had some of his earliest matches with was Blassie in LA because he was a babyface then. And he's working with Blassie. So, a lot of 7 years of separation in wrestling.
He was also early on a Mongolian.
Yep.
Mongolian or something.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, well, if it wasn't for Cousin Luke, man, he helped me out. Always took care of me. He'd get me and Manny in a little gym locker area, in a little office, the gym teacher's office, and say, "All right, you guys, you know what to do. Move a little furniture." We were the furniture movers. That's what we did, because we could do it and still be safe and not jeopardize the safety of the crowd. He knew we weren't going to do anything stupid like that. And if that's your spot, man, there's nothing wrong with that. I loved it because you know what? You don't have to remember anything. When you work those type of matches, what are you going to do? Call a chair? You just do it. It's more like a real fight,
You weren't like Randy Savage and you had the 93 pages for his bout with Steamboat?
Not me.
You had to memorize him in order.
Yeah, I couldn't do it and I wouldn't do it because I can't respond to the crowd in a proper way if I'm trying to stick to a script. What if the people are sitting on their hands? I'm going to toss your ass out over the top rope and come out, smack you with a chair or something, to get the people to pop a little bit. So I never agreed with that. I won't say I haven't done it because there was a time when I was doing for my first match for Todd Gordon, I brought little Guido with me, James Maritato. And I remember walking up and down the beach with him, putting this match together because I really wanted it to be right. And sure enough, one of the first things Todd Gordon talked about when he did the timeline was that Cairo brought little Guido. They did a debut match and they tore the house apart, tore the house down. You got to
Tommy,
stand.
I gotta go, but let me say this about Guido. Before he got into pro wrestling, I happened to be in Japan. I took in a UWF, a Satoru Sayama show.
Yeah, I gave him that
He
connection. I
he
got him.
that MMA stuff with Ken Shamrock. It was Bart Vale, Ken Shamrock, and the Guido was a superb MMA kid.
Yeah, I mean, I gave him that connection to go over there when I came back. I was over there with everybody. We had Lou Thez, we had Danny Hodge, Billy Robinson, Gordon Nelson's kid. How old is
It's Steve Nelson. Steve Nelson.
Good dude. I
Yep.
trained with Steve for UWF in Nashville. Good dude.
That's where Billy Robinson was breaking in the boys, right?
Yeah, they had a little gym. They had two places actually. I went there. I went and trained like twice. I was down there with a guy by the name of Joe DeFuria. He used to wrestle out of Florida, good kid. And I went another time with somebody else. I don't even remember who it was. But good people and a lot of good connections were made over there. Got a picture on the wall of me with Billy Robinson in an arm bar on the plane and going to Tokyo, coming back from Tokyo. So a lot of good times.
Tommy, what do you consider some of the highlights of your career?
Wrestling in a Jinku Baseball Stadium for UWF, 48,000 people.
Wow. Who'd you wrestle?
I wrestled Takayama, Yoshihiro Takayama. Do you remember that famous MMA fight with Don Fry and the big Japanese guy? They just pounded each other. That was Takayama, Yoshihiro Takayama.
Wow.
And then I would say my time.
This was I'm sorry, Tony. That you're talking about the Japanese UWF, not the one that Herb Abrams.
No, UWFI. Yeah, that was Takada. Nobuhito Takada owned that company. I was in Korakuen Hall. I was in Sumo Hall. I was at Budokan. And I was at Jinku Baseball Stadium. Good experience. And then I would have to say, the time in a whole year, the Sandman feud, and then my time with Manny Fernandez, matches, endless amount of matches. And then I had a bunch of NWA title matches against Dan Severn. Some of those were good.
What was it like working in the ring with Severin?
Well, I had been in Japan with Dan previously. We used to roll around together. Instead of going to the dojo, we would take those fitness trails and stuff they have in Japan, and we work out. We roll around on the ballroom floor, move the tables out of the way in Grace Hotel in Shin Yokohama. So I had the matches with him were when he was still with the older woman. Who was it? Phyllis Lee. You remember her? She was a manager for Dan, and she basically told him, "Don't give anybody anything." And even though we worked together previously and we had been in Japan together, he was listening to her. A year later, I saw him, and he was given a lot more than he gave me. But I never let him make me look bad. I was been on top of him with my forearm in his face. It was a big spread in Wrestling Magazine years ago. A couple of our matches. So, again, Japan, ECW, just some of the guys I've met and been friends with. Teddy, my trainer, Davey O'Hannon, Johnny Rods, Larry Sharp, Bundy, all these guys that were from Jersey, and Mike Sharp. I mean, everybody.
Did you work with Bam Bam Bigelow?
Did I what?
Did you work with Bam Bam Bigelow?
No, I just knew him well, and been on many shows. And one of his best buddies is my longtime friend, the Equalizer, Paul Bleikow. So I see him twice a week, and this is going back 96. I know him since 96. So I have I'm doing something with Jason. you know Jason from ECW.
Sure.
Well, he's opening a school down in Vineland, so I'll be involved in that. My only desire at this point is to help the young guys. I'm not wealthy, but I'm comfortable. If somebody offers me money, sometimes I take it or I don't take it. It depends. Put it back, give it to the guys, whatever. If you got 10 guys that you only paid $25 a piece, here, take this and pay them. That money for being involved in wrestling has never been. I was a union electrician making six figures and working and wrestling and taking time off and going back to work. And whenever a big job came, I'd go on it. So I had that luxury. So I never got stuck with still having to do this or still trying to make money doing this. If I go to a signing, I give more shit away. It costs me more for what I buy to wear that day than I make usually. You know what I mean? So I feel blessed that I'm in that position because it's obvious that some of the guys that I know from all those years ago are not in that position, and they still have to be out there hustling and trying to make a dollar in the business. And that's why I told my son. He never, showed an interest. But I did get him into a sheet metal workers union because I come from a union background. Father, grandfather, uncle, brother-in-law, me, and now him. Different trade, but I couldn't send him into the electrical trade. There's too much corruption. My original local merged with the newer local because they were stealing everything that wasn't nailed down. And then the same happened with the new regime and the new local. So when it came time to get my son set up, he didn't want to go to college. I said, you know what? Let me get him set up with a better local. And I touched base with these people, Farmingdale, New Jersey, local 27 sheet metal workers. So I don't have to, I look at it like this. If you have if there becomes a second, third, fourth generation wrestler, to me, that's child abuse. I really believe that. I believe you should. I talked to Wes Briscoe one time, and I said, Wes, are you telling me my screen went dark in a second?
Yeah, we just lost your visual here.
I said, are you telling me that your father didn't steer you out of this? Like I'm befuddled by that because I would fight tooth and nail to make sure that my son didn't do this.
Yeah, but Tommy, my dad absolutely abhorred wrestling, and here I am. So it doesn't, just because you say you hate it as a parent doesn't guarantee that your kid's gonna have anything to do with it. And my kids have nothing to do with wrestling. They don't care about it one iota. So maybe it skips a generation.
I think it does. Yeah, my kid. When my son cares, when somebody says to him, "Oh, your father was an ECW or a teacher or a pastor or whoever," and even my nephews, they repeat a promo I did with me and Angel, and they repeat it word for word. So he's interested if somebody else is interested, or he just hides it well. Because I have heard him imitate some of my promos, so he's obviously looking at them, But I'm glad I don't have to fight that because nobody could have steered me away. And I'm not saying I have any regrets, but it's not the best thing in the world. And when you consider most of my peers are dead, a good amount of my friends, I'm lucky to be here. 67. Been through hell, beat drug addiction, diabetes, and depression. And I just saw Willie Mack drop some dude on his neck. I guess it's TNA. I don't know what it is. It's on TV here. I got the voice off because my light's not working and you won't be able to see me without it. So still watching it, A lot of times I'm embarrassed though, just sitting in my own living room. Some of the stuff that goes on,
Well, yeah, tell us about the things that you feel are not right in wrestling that you feel should be corrected?
Well, aside from who's running what in the back, let's just go from the point of view of the work itself. I see so many things. I'll give you one of my biggest pet peeves. You got the guy in the corner, and you go to take him out, and you send him across the ring. But instead of sending him, you let him go of his arm, and he has to run by himself to the other side of the ring or to the other corner. Who's going to do that? It makes no sense. You know, it's just like when you think of you're going to do your big move off the top rope, so you hit the guy with something, right? Now, you have to hit him with something that keeps him out of commission long enough for you to get up to the top rope and come off. In reality, there's no common sense to going to the top rope. We're not talking about we're talking about wrestling, so common sense is kind of out the window. But we still have to make it look right. So if I take you out of the corner and I let you go, and you have to run the rest of the way and turn yourself around and hit the corner, it's stupid. I would take the guy out of the corner and I would throw him in a working fashion, but he would have no choice but to spin himself around because I'm sending him in with velocity. He doesn't have to run. He has to go because I'm sending him. It's just, waiting bent over in the middle of the ring for somebody to get up to the top, and then they fumble it or they fumble, and you're down there like a jerk, like you're waiting. Readjust. Go down to one knee. Sell a little more. It makes no sense. Striking. These guys, they can't strike. Chops, they can be overdone. Bret Hart never liked chops because he thought it makes no sense. Now, if you took out all the things that make no sense today, you would have nothing because most of that stuff you would never do in a fight. Yes, it is pro wrestling. Yes, we got to work together. But if you want lucha libre, you see how they push the other guy with his hand and just throwing him off like a do-si-do almost. He puts his arm around and is assisting the guy. Like, it's too fake. It doesn't make any sense. When you watch some of my old matches, if you watch Kane on a pole, Singapore Kane on a pole, when you watch, you will never see us say a word to each other. Number one, when it's a hardcore match like that, there's no spots to work out anyway. The finish, maybe, that's about it. You're swinging chairs and sticks and tables. So there's no spots. But when I'm raining, he's trying to climb the pole and I'm climbing the pole, trying to get to the stick, and I'm punching down on him. If you see that match and you see those punches, I was testing the limit every time I got in the ring with Sam, man, to make sure Paulie didn't get to him, to tell him to try to break my leg or try to take me out, because Paul Heyman he was afraid to fire me. He was afraid of me. And nobody in that locker room, number one, was man enough. And a lot of them, those guys were my friends. The only guys that would have a shot against me in real combat were friends of mine. And that's the only reason I would even not make a determination on whether they were up to snuff or not. But nobody wanted to mess with me in that locker room. So I basically did what I wanted until I decided to leave. But, these guys, even Tommy Dreamer is another one. They go into business for themselves, and then they want to act like they invented pro wrestling. The thing they did to to Dennis Corluzzo with the NWA belt, throwing it in the garbage. He wasn't in on that. He made the guy look like a fool. It's pro wrestling. We should not be going into the ring without any group of people not conferring with everyone involved and doing things that we don't know about. That's not pro wrestling. That's going into business for yourself. Dreamer did that, but nobody ever tested me, including Sandman. But we really hit each other. We really beat each other up, and I wasn't satisfied unless I showed I had the evidence on my body. And that's probably how I ended up partially crippled too.
So, Tommy, if you could book yourself in a dream match, in your prime, and anyone that you could wrestle, living or dead, in their prime, who would you have wanted to get in the ring with?
Tarzan Goto.
Okay.
How's
I,
that for an answer?
yeah, that's a name that I'm not thoroughly familiar with.
Well, Tarzan Goto was a real hardcore guy. He became a hardcore guy, FMW, and I had an opportunity. We did a press conference with Dennis Coralluzzo in New York, and he was there. And I said to Dennis, I said, listen, I want to work with that guy. And it never came to fruition. Aside from that, I don't know. I can't say there's anybody in particular that, would have wanted to or desired. I was pretty happy with the crop that I worked with. Manny, you know, friends of mine that I brought with me as I became more known on the indies. And I would get a new guy call me, a new promoter, and say, I'd like to book you for such and such a date. Are you open? Yeah, I'm open. Or no, I have a booking and you happen to be in New Jersey. So if you want, I'll come and do your show. Put me on before intermission, and then I can make it to 70 miles to the other show because I'm on the main event. And I'd like to bring somebody. Who do you have for me in mind for you to work? Oh, well, it's this local kid. I don't know who he is. I said, I'll tell you what, you want to have the best match, want me to have the best match, let me bring somebody with me. And it was either Derek Domino, it was young Keith Shearer, it was James Maritato, Little Guido. I always had somebody that I could bring with me, get them work, and make sure that I was going to have a good match. And that was a luxury I had. I got top dollar in the indies at the time without having been a WWE superstar, WWF superstar. I gained a lot of respect. People knew my background. I had the best mentors. Now, do you remember a guy by the name of Pete Reeves?
Yes.
All right, Pete Reeves was a good friend of mine. His aunt and my mother were best friends. And when I found out that my mother's friend Mary, her nephew was a pro wrestler, and that he was going to be at her house across the street, I ran over there, met Pete, eventually worked for him and Davey O'Hannon in Wildwood, Over the Top Promotions. And then at one point, when I was running a show in Garfield, I brought Pete in and gave him an award. He cried. He's like, "You were just this skinny little kid, and now I'm working. I'll come to your show, So it was, I fulfilled a lifelong dream, really, and I was a competitive bodybuilder. I was a weightlifter, a pro wrestler. I lived my dream, and I'm still here, and I have a life. I'm with the same woman since 1989. I got two beautiful children. I got my doggies over here. Oh, I lost you.
Big fans of dogs. You can bring them on the show.
Yeah, she's out like a light right now. But listen, this is what it is. If you made it through, you give back as long as you don't put your own life in jeopardy or peril. I've been through a lot, man, and I'm still here. And people say, that Iron Man, that's no gimmick, man. You're the real deal. I'll take that. You know what I mean?
I think you have a book in you.
Yeah, I think so. My mother told me that so many years ago. So I want to tell you a quick story about the pink water. Okay, I would bounce in New York City, and I was living in my parents' basement. And when I would come home, 5 a.m, whatever it was, my mother, first thing she would do was go in the bathroom and look and see if there was a white tuck shirt floating in pink water. Because I would come home with buttons off my shirts, bloody. She would repair them until she couldn't anymore. She'd tell me, I can't get this. This one's ripped in the back. It's no good. But what she would do is she would never bother me and ask me how my night was unless she would go check the bathroom. If she saw the pink shirt, the pink and blood water, she would holler down the stairs. Well, not holler, but are you okay? I said, yeah, Mom, I'm fine. Any cuts or bruises I got to take care of? No, Mom, I'm good. Do you have any of the buttons? No. All right, then we got to throw this one out. So imagine this is your mom, what you put her through, that she's checking the sink to see if there's a shirt in pink water.
Wow.
That's
My
some,
mom was long gone before I ever did anything in the ring.
it's probably a good thing. Um, one night, my mother came finally after so many years. I got Derek Domino. I'm working him that night. My mother's up in the corner at the top of the bleachers in high school. Wasn't filled the building, so she was kind of by herself. I dragged Domino over to that little window in the gym, the locker room. I said, "You see that lady over there?" And he starts before I even finish. He's like, "Oh no, cuz." I said, "I want you. I'm going to throw you out." I said, no DQ, and I'm going to beat you up the stands, bleachers, and I'm going to pick up something. I'm going to whack you right in front of my mother, and then I'm going to beat you down the bleachers. It's exactly what we did. So I grabbed a can of soda on the way. I beat him up the bleachers, and I pulled back his long hair right in front of my mother, and I cracked him in the head with the can, busted him open. He tumbles down the rest of the bleachers. The match is over, and my mother's waiting outside. My buddy goes, "You better go talk to your mother." So I go out there, and of course she knew the deal. And she's crying and laughing, and she says, "I didn't raise you to do this."
Yeah.
I said, "Success, right? I did my job. I got my mother upset." But she knew. She says, "I should have known when I would hit you, you would fly across the room like I hit you with a baseball bat."
Hmm.
I guess I was taking bumps already.
The early sell. The early sell. Evan, have you got one more question for Tommy for tonight?
Sure. Looking back, anything you regret? Any decisions in wrestling? Any different roads you would have taken?
You know what? Prior to my life getting straightened out, which has only been in the last year or two since I lost my leg, I got my life straightened out. I would have to say no, because I obviously could not be exactly where I am in the here and now, mentally, physically, spiritually, without having gone the exact route that I went. So no, I guess not. There were times in the past where I had regrets, but I think I lived through all that, and I lived long enough to realize that I'm here by hook or by crook, and a lot of other people aren't. So I want to accept that and just try to live the best life I can from here on in. Give it to the business when I can. Talk to people, young guys that want to get into business. I train a couple people at my house in my little gym. Tony Cheney, a young guy out on the circuit right now. We put 25 pounds of muscle on him in 1 year without steroids.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
So
tell us what you're doing with Jason. Jason's a friend of mine on Facebook.
Jason is opening up a dojo training center on Landis Avenue in Vineland, New Jersey. They're going to have facility for taping for your small promotion, seating up to over 100 people. And like at first, Jason was like, "I don't know if it's big enough. It only fits 100 people." I said, "Listen, these little promotions, they're lucky if they get 100 people. So if we get them in there at a reduced rate, one which they could not do on their own, we got the ring, we got everything right there. Going to do birthday parties. I think it's going to be good. I'm going to do my best to hold up my end of it." One of my former students from my training center, Force One, Josh Adams, he wrestles as, wears a pink, orange mask. I can't remember his new name, but he was Josh Adams. He trained with us. Does all the training in a lot of the little schools around. So he'll be with us. Should be a pretty good crew.
What's the name of the federation?
It's ACW.
Okay.
It's Assault Championship Wrestling, ACW, and
Tell him if whoever wants to get promotion from this show, we'd love to have him on and talk to him about his Fed.
Sure, I'll tell him that. I'm sure he would like to do that.
Let him know, because we're friends of all indie Feds. We really, want to give them a voice and do what we can to promote any indie Feds that need, the promoting. Plus, we should be having a deal soon with Angel Orsini to be on East Coast USA TV. So this show will be broadcast on the East Coast for folks just like your friend Jason running his Fed. So we'd like to help. Sure,
I'll have Jason get a hold of you.
Okay, great. So we're almost done with the show here. It's an amazing hour. I mean, I tell you, Tommy, you're the kind of guest we love to have on the show. No yes, no answers. You've got incredible detailed stuff for everything. We just wind you up and let you go, and that always makes for the best shows. But why don't you let our fans know how they can get a hold of you and your social media stuff and anything else you want to promote?
I'm just basically I'm on Facebook. Anybody can get me on Facebook. Right now, all I'm doing is I'm working with Jason, ACW. I have a couple guys I train at my house for bodybuilding to train their body for wrestling. That's what I do. I got a full setup in the garage, and I don't charge anybody. Somebody needs help. I got so many guys I know from the past and guys that are promoting now that were wrestling that are promoting and now have their own schools and have guys that need help with the body and training. I don't accept the fact that you're 190 skinny fat. Get in the gym. You're lucky to be in the ring, period. So get in the gym. Everybody needs to work out. If you're 6'2" and you're 250 pounds and you got a decent body, maybe you don't have to train so hard. But when you're under 6 foot in this business, you got to have a body. Nobody says you have to take steroids, but you got to have a body. But you can reach me on Facebook. That's about it, really. It's the only place I'm available. And I will definitely get a hold of Jason. And it's been a pleasure. Anytime you need somebody to fill an hour, let me know.
Oh, no problem with that. And if you ever do decide to do a book, talk to Evan about it. He can give you some pointers on. But for Evan, it was a big release. It was something that really helped settle some ghosts and everything. Maybe for you, it might do the same thing.
Yeah, that's not a bit. I mean, my mother's been telling me that from 30 years ago, and I've lived a hell of a lot more of a life since then. So it's something to think about, that's for sure. Actually, I got somebody. My friend Joe Borzada is working on a short film, so we're supposed to start that sometime soon. I've been sending him information, and he's putting everything together, so hopefully we should hear something soon.
Meanwhile, Evan, why don't you mention your book too?
Wrestling Rings, Blackboards, and Movie Sets. It's over 100 stories. I wrote it during COVID.
I got to get it.
Oh, thank you. And there's a story on Tiger Khan in there that you knew Tiger well. And, there's a story on Nicole Bass in there. She was a dear friend. And
awesome.
A lot of people in there you knew. And
my friend Phil Varlese just told me about your book. He said it was great.
Who was that?
Phil Varlese.
Oh, Phil Varlese. Yeah. Phil's a good guy. Yeah.
I know him forever.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I know Phil. Phil has good taste in music too. Good ears.
Yep. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely pick it up.
Thank you. And it was a pleasure having you on.
Thank you.
It's an easy interview. You just roll and we just sit there and enjoy it. Seriously.
I agree, and I'm sure you have even more stories than you told us tonight. So we'll definitely want to have you on again soon.
Absolutely. Anything you want to know, I'm an open book.
Very good.
Thank you so much.
Well, yes, we're going to wrap it up for today, but thank you so much for being here. We'll have you on again soon. Good night, everybody.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tommy. Thank you.